Supreme Commander Ixal of the Ketheri Expansion Fleet stood at the command center of his flagship, the Dawn Seeker, his iridescent scales shifting colors with anticipation. The holographic display before him showed what his science officers had dismissed as an anomaly: a single vessel of unknown origin holding position at the edge of the Nexus 7 star system, a prize the Ketheri Empire had marked for colonization. Magnification increased. Supreme Commander, announced First Observer Nixus, her tendrils weaving complex patterns that indicated confusion. The vessel appears to be primitive. Ixal's vertical pupils contracted as he studied the ship. Unlike the sleek, crystalline designs of Ketheri vessels, this craft was angular and dark, its hull marked with what appeared to be deliberate armor plating. It measured roughly 2 kilometers in length, but its power signatures were barely registering on their sensors. Another species that thinks itself ready for the stars, Ixal commented, mandibles clicking in amusement. Show them our standard greeting formation. Let them witness the might they dare to challenge. The Ketheri fleet of 30 vessels moved with practiced precision, their crystalline hulls catching and refracting starlight in a display that had caused many emerging civilizations to immediately surrender. The unknown ship remained motionless. They're broadcasting. Supreme Commander, announced Communications Director Vexel. Audio and visual. Let us meet these bold wanderers, Ixal commanded, straightening his ceremonial armor. The holoscreen materialized, revealing a figure that caused several bridge officers to emit startled bioluminescent pulses. The alien was bictal, covered in what appeared to be a form-fitting dark uniform, rather than natural armor. Its skin was pale, its face dominated by forward-facing eyes that seemed to pierce through the transmission. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth ship Horizon. The alien spoke, its voice carrying an authority that made Ixal's secondary heart skip a beat. You have entered protected space. The Nexus 7 system is under human guardianship. Please state your intentions. Ixal's scales rippled with indignation. I am Supreme Commander Ixal of the Ketheri Expansion Fleet. We claim this system by right of discovery and superior force. Your single vessel, while intriguing, cannot hope to enforce any territorial claims against our might. The human's expression didn't change, but something in those alien eyes made Ixal's combat instincts surge to full alert. Commander, I don't think you understand the situation. We're not claiming this system for ourselves. We're protecting it, and you, from what lies beyond it. Your sensors may be advanced, but they're not designed to detect what we've been fighting for the past 3 centuries. Before Ixal could respond, his tactical officer's scales blanched to pure white. Supreme Commander. Energy spike from the human vessel. These readings can't be correct. They're operating on power levels that would tear our ships apart. Impossible, Ixal began, but his words were cut short as the human ship's hull began to transform. What had appeared to be solid armor plates shifted and realigned, revealing weapon ports that glowed with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. Your ships are beautiful, Commander Ixal, Captain Rice continued, her voice now carrying a note of what might have been pity. But beauty doesn't survive long out here in the dark. We learned that lesson centuries ago, when we first encountered the Void Hunters. Everything about our ships, every ugly angle and scared plate, exists because we had to adapt or die. The tactical display suddenly erupted with new data as the human ship's true nature revealed itself. What had appeared to be a primitive vessel was now showing energy signatures that dwarfed the entire Ketheri fleet combined. Weapon systems unlike anything in their database came online, and the void itself seemed to ripple around the Horizon's hull. This is your only warning, Commander, Reyes stated firmly. The Ketheri Empire has potential. We've watched your species grow, protected you from threats you never knew existed. But now you're expanding into spaces where we can no longer shield you without direct contact. You have a choice to make. Learn about the real dangers that exist in this galaxy and join us in fighting them, or retreat to safer spaces and remain ignorant of what lurks in the dark. As if to punctuate her words, long-range sensors began detecting massive gravitational disturbances at the system's edge. Ixal watched in horror as space itself seemed to tear, revealing shapes that his mind struggled to process. "What you're about to witness," Captain Rice said grimly, "is why humanity built warships instead of pleasure cruisers. Formation Delta 7, if you please, Commander. Your fleet will need to follow our lead precisely if we're all going to survive the next few hours." Supreme Commander Ixal, leader of the most powerful expansion fleet in Ketheri history, found himself doing something unprecedented, taking orders from a single alien vessel as the true nature of the cosmos began to reveal itself in all its terrifying glory. The void erupted with nightmare shapes, entities that seemed to bend reality around them as they emerged from the gravitational tiers. Ixal counted 12 massive forms, each one larger than his flagship and moving with impossible grace. Their surfaces rippled with patterns that made his optical sensors automatically adjust to prevent damage. By the first light, breathed First Observer Nixis, her tendrils coiling tightly against her body. "What are they?" "The Void Hunters," Captain Rice answered through the still-open channel. "We encountered them first in 2157, when they consumed one of our colony worlds. They don't communicate, don't negotiate, and don't leave survivors. Your weapons will be useless against their phase-shifted hulls." As if to demonstrate her point, several Ketheri vessels opened fire with their most powerful weapons. The crystalline energy beams, capable of cutting through planetary crusts, simply passed through the approaching horrors as if they were mirages. "All Ketheri vessels match our vector precisely," Rice commanded, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of combat experience. "Horizon's quantum wake will extend to cover your ships, but you must stay within 500 meters of our hull at all times." The human warship's previously dark hull began to glow with lines of blue-white energy. What Ixal had mistaken for random scaring patterns suddenly revealed themselves as intricate technological arrays. The Horizon's engines flared to life with a deep purple radiance that seemed to bend light around it. "Supreme Commander," the tactical officer reported, scales shifting to a pale blue of confusion. "I'm detecting temporal distortions around the human vessel. They're manipulating time itself." The Horizon moved with impossible speed, its bulk defying physics as it positioned itself at the center of the Ketheri formation. The strange energy patterns on its hull pulsed outward, enveloping the alien ships in a protective field that made reality itself seem to shimmer. "Multiple targeting solutions," a new human voice announced over the channel. "Dimensional anchors locked. Permission to engage, Captain. Weapons free, Lieutenant Jung. Show our new friends why humanity survived first contact with these things." The Horizon's transformation from mysterious vessel to engine of war was breathtaking. Weapon ports that had been invisible moments before I rised open along its length, revealing technology that made Ixal's scientific mind real. Beams of concentrated gravity lashed out, literally bending space to trap the approaching Void Hunters in localized time dilation fields. "Impossible," Nixis whispered, her scientific training struggling with what her sensors were telling her. "They're creating artificial singularities." The human ship's main weapons came online, firing what appeared to be streams of condensed reality itself. Where they struck the Void Hunters, space normalized violently, forcing the entities back into normal spacetime. The creatures' natural defenses, so effective against conventional weapons, were useless against attacks that rewrote the laws of physics around them. "Target Alpha neutralized," the human weapons officer reported with professional calm. "Bravo and Charlie attempting to phase shift to a lower dimension. Quantum locks engage." Ixal watched in awe as the Horizon systematically dismantled beings that had seemed unstoppable moments before. Each weapon strike was precisely calculated, herding the Void Hunters into killing zones where their supernatural abilities were neutralized by overlapping fields of distorted spacetime. "Your Empire's scientists were on the right track, with crystalline energy matrices," Captain Reyes commented as her ship executed a maneuver that should have torn it apart. But you never considered combining them with quantum-locked neutronium alloys. Sometimes the most advanced solution is also the most brutal. A void hunter, larger than the others, attempted to breach the Horizon's defensive screen. The human ship's response was immediate and devastating. Panels along its hull rotated, revealing banks of devices that Ixal initially mistook for primitive projectile weapons. Mass drivers, he asked incredulously. Synchronized quantum torpedo launchers, Rice corrected. Sometimes you need to fight monsters with monsters. The weapons fired, launching what appeared to be solid spheres of utter darkness. When they impacted the Void Hunter, they didn't explode. They imploded, creating microsecond singularities that tore chunks of the creature's mass into another dimension. The battle continued for what felt like hours, but according to ship's chronometers, lasted only minutes. When the last Void Hunter retreated through a rapidly collapsing dimensional tear, the Horizon's weapons powered down, its hull returning to its deceptively mundane appearance. Combat effectiveness analysis, Rice requested. 97% success rate, Captain, her tactical officer responded. 3% power drain on the main cores. No casualties. The Ketheri fleet is intact, though their sensor arrays will need recalibration after exposure to quantum wake. Ixal realized his scales had shifted to the deep blue of humility, a color he hadn't manifested since his academy days. Captain Reyes, he transmitted, I believe we have much to discuss about the true nature of space warfare, and perhaps an alliance. That's why we revealed ourselves, Commander, Reyes replied, and for the first time she smiled. The galaxy is changing. The Void Hunters are growing bolder, pushing into new territories. Humanity has fought them to a standstill for centuries, but we'll need allies for what's coming. Your Empire's mastery of crystalline technology could be the key to developing new weapons against them. As the Horizon's sensor screens showed more dimensional disturbances forming at the system's edge, Ixal made a decision that would change the course of his civilization forever. The Ketheri Empire stands ready to learn, Captain. Where do we begin? The Horizon's command deck was unlike anything Ixal had ever seen. Where Ketheri ships favored organic crystalline constructions that mimicked their natural architecture, the human vessel's interior was a study in functional efficiency. Every surface served a purpose, every panel designed for quick access and repair. Even the lighting seemed calculated, providing maximum visibility while minimizing power consumption. Captain Rice had invited a small delegation from the Ketheri fleet aboard, while their ships maintained a defensive formation. The dimensional rifts at the system's edge pulsed ominously, but the human ship's presence seemed to keep them at bay. Your civilization first detected quantum signatures in 2157, Rice explained, gesturing to a holographic display that showed Earth's solar system. We thought we were alone in our understanding of dimensional physics. We were wrong. The display shifted, showing a human colony world being consumed by shapes that made Ixal's scales ripple with instinctive fear. New Eden was our first major colony, population of 12 million. The Void Hunters emerged from what we thought was a natural spatial anomaly. We lost the planet in 6 hours. How did humanity survive? First observer Nixis asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her horror. We adapted, a new voice answered. An elderly human entered the command deck, his uniform bearing different insignia than the others. Admiral James Chen, he introduced himself. I was a junior officer during the first incursion. The Admiral's presence seemed to command instant respect from the human crew. We learned that our traditional approach to space warfare was useless against entities that could shift between dimensions at will. So we started thinking like them. The holographic display showed the evolution of human warships. Early vessels, sleek and aesthetically pleasing, gave way to increasingly utilitarian designs. Each iteration showed more armor, more redundant systems, more weapons emplacements. Every scar on our ships tells a story, Chen continued. Every seemingly crude design choice represents a lesson learned in blood. We discovered that symmetrical hull designs made it easier for the hunters to phase through our defenses. The random patterns you see on our armor, they're actually crystalline matrices that disrupt dimensional tampering. But why remain hidden? Ixal asked. Why protect species that never knew you existed? Reyes exchanged a look with Chen before answering. Because we discovered something worse than the Void Hunters, something that sees emerging civilizations as food. The display shifted again, showing what appeared to be a massive tear in space itself. We call it the darkness between. The Void Hunters are just its scouts, testing defenses, looking for weak points. We've been holding it back for 3 centuries, giving younger species time to develop, time to reach the point where they might survive learning the truth. Your empire's expansion brought you to the edge of what we call the barrier zone, Chen explained. We maintain a network of quantum beacons that help contain dimensional incursions, but the barrier is weakening. The darkness between is growing stronger, and humanity can't hold it back alone anymore. Ixal watched as the display showed hundreds of human warships patrolling invisible lines across the galaxy, engaging threats that other species never knew existed. The scale of the operation was staggering. How many ships do you have? Nixus asked, her tendrils weaving complex patterns of calculation. Not enough, Reyes answered grimly. We lose ships and crews every year. Our population is large enough to sustain our fleet, but we've reached the limit of what we can protect alone. That's why we're reaching out now. The Cathari Empire's achievements in crystalline technology could be revolutionary, Chen added. Your understanding of energy matrices, combined with our quantum engineering, we might be able to create defenses that don't just hold the line, but push it back. A warning tone sounded through the command deck. Multiple rifts forming, the tactical officer announced. Larger signatures than before. They're testing our response patterns. They always do, Reyes said, turning to Ixal. Supreme Commander, you've seen what's really out there now. Your empire stands at a crossroads. You can retreat to safer space, and we'll continue to protect you as best we can. Or you can join us. Ixal's scales shifted through a complex pattern of colors as he processed everything he'd learned. The pride of the Cathari Empire warred with the undeniable evidence before him. Finally, his scales settled into the deep gold of resolve. The Cathari do not abandon allies, he stated firmly. But we will need time to prepare our people for this truth. To adapt our technology, to build ships that can fight alongside yours. Time is one thing we can't promise, Chen said solemnly. The darkness between is growing stronger. We estimate 2 years, maybe 3, before the barrier fails completely. When that happens, then we will have to work quickly, Ixal interrupted. The Cathari built an empire among the stars in less time than that. With humanity's knowledge to guide us, we will be ready. Reyes smiled, but it was an expression tempered by years of combat and loss. Welcome to the real war, Commander. Let's hope your people learn faster than we did. We paid for our education in billions of lives. As if to emphasize her words, the dimensional rifts at the system's edge pulsed again, and the Horizon's crew moved to their battle stations with practiced efficiency. The real test of the newly forged alliance was about to begin. The dimensional rifts at the edge of the Nexus 7 system had grown to encompass an area larger than a small moon. The Horizon's sensors painted a grim picture of what was emerging. Not just void hunters this time, but something far worse. Primary entity mass exceeding all previous encounters, the human tactical officer reported, their calm voice belying the gravity of the situation. Dimensional distortion patterns match Archive Case Omega-7. Captain Rice's expression hardened. A hollow king. They're escalating. She turned to Ixal, who stood at a secondary command station, where his crystalline interfaces had been hastily integrated with human systems. Commander, your ship's energy matrices might be our best chance at containing this thing. Are your crews ready? Ixal's scales rippled with determined gold. We are Cathari. Adaptation is our strength. His fleet had spent the last few hours receiving crash courses in human combat doctrine and emergency modifications to their weapon systems. Though I admit, fighting something that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously was not covered in our tactical training. The Hollow Kings are why we built the Horizon-class vessels, Admiral Chen explained, studying the sensor readings. They're living gaps in reality, spaces where natural law breaks down. Conventional weapons just pass through them. But your crystalline energy matrices, they could help us pin it in normal space long enough to harm it. The tactical display showed the massive entity emerging fully into normal space. It defied description, its form constantly shifting between states of matter that shouldn't exist simultaneously. Where it passed, space itself seemed to decay. All ships, Battle Formation Delta 9, Rice commanded. Cathari vessels, form up in your crystalline resonance pattern. Horizon will coordinate timing of energy pulses. Remember, you'll only have microseconds when the dimensional barriers align. The human ship's hull began to pulse with complex patterns of energy, its quantum wake extending to protect the Cathari fleet. The 30 crystalline vessels arranged themselves in a precise geometric formation that amplified their combined energy output. Entity approaching effective weapons range, Tactical announced. Dimensional shift patterns becoming erratic. It's preparing to attack. This is where theory meets practice, Rice said grimly. All ships, on my mark. Remember, we don't need to destroy it. We just need to convince it that this hunting ground isn't worth the cost. The Hollow King made its move, reality warping around it as it launched its first attack. Space itself seemed to age thousands of years in seconds, entropy waves cascading toward the combined fleet. Mark. The Horizon's main weapons fired, not at the entity itself, but at precise points in space around it. Simultaneously, the Cathari ships released carefully calibrated energy pulses through their crystalline matrices. The result was beyond anything Ixal had ever witnessed. Where human quantum weapons met Cathari energy patterns, reality itself seemed to crystallize. The Hollow King's attack shattered against barriers made of frozen time and solidified space. Pattern holding. Tactical reported. Quantum crystal matrix stable at 60% efficiency, better than simulated. Second attack wave incoming, Chen warned. Multiple dimensional vectors. The entity's form twisted in ways that hurt to observe, portions of its mass existing in several dimensions at once as it tried to bypass their defenses. But wherever it attempted to phase through, it met the combined human Cathari defense grid. Fascinating, First Observer Nixis commented, her scientific enthusiasm apparently immune to eldritch horror. The crystalline matrices are actually learning from the quantum patterns, adapting in real time. Our ships are evolving their own defenses. That's why we needed you, Rise explained, coordinating another barrage. Humanity learned to fight the darkness, but your technology can help us actually push it back. Look. The Hollow King's attacks were becoming less coordinated. Where its attempts to breach their defense grid met the quantum crystal barriers, parts of its mass were being forced to remain in normal space, vulnerable to conventional weapons. All ships switched to attack pattern Epsilon. Chen commanded. Focus fire on the normalized sections. Don't let it adapt to the pattern. The combined fleet moved with increasing coordination, human tactical experience melding with Cathari technical innovation. The Horizon's main guns fired in perfect synchronization, with crystalline energy beams, each shot more effective than the last as the two technologies learned from each other. The entity's next attack faltered as more of its mass was forced into normal space. The crystalline energy matrix had evolved to create what Nixis called dimensional anchors, points where reality became too stable for the creature to shift between states. It's trying to retreat, Tactical announced. Dimensional rift energy dropping. Not yet, Rise ordered. Commander Ixal, ready your fleet's primary weapons. Let's give it something to remember us by. The Cathari ships charged their main guns, the crystalline matrices now pulsing with patterns copied from human quantum technology. The Horizon's weapon ports aligned with their allies, creating a synchronized firing solution that would have been impossible hours ago. Fire. The combined attack struck the Hollow King just as it began to phase out of normal space. The effect was spectacular. Quantum weaponry forced sections of its mass to solidify, while crystalline energy beams sheared through the normalized matter. The entity released a pulse of energy that defied classification before retreating fully into its dimensional rift, leaving behind pieces of its mass that rapidly decayed into inert matter. Analysis. Chen requested. Entity retreated with approximately 30% mass loss. Tactical reported. Dimensional wake patterns suggest severe energy depletion. It won't return to this sector soon. The first victory of many, Ixel stated, his scales now showing patterns that indicated both pride and humility. Though I suspect we've only seen the beginning of what these creatures can do. You're right, Rice confirmed, studying the sensor readings of the battle. They'll adapt to this strategy, develop countermeasures. But for the first time in centuries, we have something they can't easily counter. Your crystalline technology is the key we've been looking for. Then we had better begin preparations immediately, Ixel said. My empire will need to convert our entire production capacity to warship construction, and our scientists will need everything you can tell them about quantum engineering. What you saw today was just a scout, Chen warned. When the darkness between finally breaks through completely, it will send far worse than Hollow Kings. Are your people ready for that kind of war? Ixel's scales shifted to deep gold, the color of absolute certainty. We are ready to fight for our existence, Admiral. The real question is, what other species are prepared to join us one month after the Battle of Nexus 7? The Horizon's command deck hosted representatives from 12 different species. Supreme Commander Ixel stood beside Captain Rice as they observed the gathered delegates through the ship's quantum-enhanced security fields. The Ketheri leader's scales shifted between deep gold and midnight blue as he processed the magnitude of what they were about to undertake. The Mersk still refused to believe. He noted, watching the feline ambassadors argue with their Xanthi rivals, even after viewing the battle recordings. Can you blame them? Rice asked, checking the latest sensor data from the barrier zone. We're asking them to accept that everything they know about the universe is incomplete, that there are horrors lurking between dimensions that see sentient life as nothing more than food. Most humans didn't believe it until the Void Hunters took New Eden. The tactical display showed hundreds of dimensional anomalies forming along the barrier zone. Each day brought more incursions, each one stronger than the last. The darkness between was testing their defenses with increasing frequency. Show them, Admiral Chen commanded from his position near the main tactical display. The holographic projection shifted, displaying a three-dimensional map of known space. Red markers indicated confirmed dimensional breaches over the past 3 centuries. The assembled delegates fell silent as they watched the pattern emerge. What had begun as isolated incidents near the barrier zone had spread like a cancer through the galaxy. Areas that appeared empty of stellar activity were revealed to be devastated regions, where reality itself had been damaged by the entity's passage. Your civilizations have grown and thrived because humanity stood guard in the darkness, Chen explained, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of secret warfare. We have lost entire fleets, whole colonies, fighting to keep these things contained. But we're reaching our limit. The recent attack on the Ketheri fleet wasn't random, Rice continued. The entities are learning, adapting. They're probing for weaknesses, testing new defenses. The barrier zone won't hold much longer. And what would you have us do? The Xanthi ambassador demanded, their crystalline form vibrating with skepticism. Our species are hardly unified among ourselves. How can we possibly stand against such threats? Ixel stepped forward, his scales shifting to pure gold. By doing what the humans have done for centuries. Adapting. He gestured to the modifications visible on his own ship through the command deck's viewport. In 1 month, we have integrated human quantum technology with our crystalline matrices. Our weapons can now harm beings that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The tactical display updated, showing the results of recent joint exercises. Human warships, their ugly but effective designs now enhanced with HFY crystalline technology, moved in formation with modified alien vessels. Each species brought unique advantages: Xanthi phase technology, Mursk predictive computing, Olaxian energy manipulation. Together, Rise emphasized, we can do more than just hold the line. We can push back. A warning tone sounded through the command deck. Multiple dimensional rifts forming in sectors 7 through 12. Tactical reported. Signatures match known Hollow King patterns. At least 3 entities, larger than anything previously encountered. The assembled delegates watched in horror as the tactical display showed the massive tiers in reality forming. But this time, something was different. The human HFY defense fleet wasn't alone. All ships, battle formations. Chen commanded. Show our guests what unity looks like. The Horizon's newly modified hull began to pulse with crystalline energy patterns as it took its position at the center of the combined fleet. HFY vessels formed their geometric amplification pattern, their quantum-enhanced weapons charging. Support ships from other species that had already pledged their support moved into predetermined positions, each bringing their unique technologies to bear. This is what we've been preparing you for, Rise addressed the assembled delegates. This is your chance to witness what we can achieve together. All ships, Combat Protocol Omega. Show them why the galaxy belongs to the living. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment everything changed. Species that had been rivals for centuries fought side by side against horrors from beyond dimensional barriers. Human determination combined with alien innovation produced results that would have been impossible months earlier. When the last Hollow King retreated, leaving behind nearly half its mass as crystallized quantum residue, the command deck erupted in cheers from a dozen different species. Even the most skeptical delegates could no longer deny the reality of the threat, or the possibility of standing against it. This is just the beginning, Chen reminded them as the fleet regrouped. The darkness between will send worse than Hollow Kings when the barrier finally fails. But today proved something crucial. We can fight them. Together, we can win. Ixal's scales rippled with complex patterns of gold and blue as he addressed the assembled representatives. 3 centuries ago, humanity chose to stand guard alone, protecting species that never knew they were in danger. They paid for that protection with billions of lives. Today, we choose to stand with them. One by one, the delegates stepped forward to pledge their support. Resources would be shared, technologies combined, fleets integrated. The galaxy's first unified defense force was born in the shadow of an approaching apocalypse. It won't be easy, Rice said quietly to Ixal as they watched alliances form between former enemies. Some species will refuse to join. Others will try to use this situation for their own advantage. We'll face political battles as fierce as any combat. But we will face them together, Ixal replied, his scales settling into pure gold. And when the darkness between finally breaks through completely, it will find something it has never encountered before, a galaxy united against it. The Horizon's sensors continued to monitor the dimensional barrier zone, where the rifts grew larger each day. But for the first time in centuries, humanity wasn't watching alone. A new age had begun, forged in the realization that the greatest threat to all life had been waiting in the spaces between reality itself. The war for existence was about to begin in earnest. But now, at last, all of humanity's sacrifices and secret battles had led to this moment, the dawn of an alliance that would change the course of galactic history forever.